Hi, welcome to Two Composers, One Channel. Today we are doing a tier list of composers and we're sorting them into underrated, about right, and overrated. We're starting from the Baroque period and we're going to finish at about the 20th century.
So we've got about 30 composers all up, lots of the big names, and then quite a few just random people that one or the other of us feel strongly about. So there's lots of people that could be in there, they're not in there. There's nothing very scientific going on here. We just hope to have some disagreements, and let's jump into it and see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully we'll hate each other by the end of this.
Let's start with Bach. Let's pull out the big guns first of all. Bach, overrated, underrated, or about right?
Oh, look, super overrated. Just terrible craft. No, I mean, to me, he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest composers of all time. I think that every note he writes is incredibly meaningful and significant on a technical level and an emotional level.
Okay, but given all the composers there are out there, anyone that is said to be the greatest composer of all time is overrated. Doesn't matter how good they are. I'm not going to convince you to overrate it, am I?
No.
Okay,
no,
about right. About right. Handel. You said you had some thoughts on Handel.
I find when I don't like classical music, or when I don't feel like great about what I'm listening to, it's because it reminds me of like what a lot of people think classical music is. Firstly, people in big wigs, but it feels somehow like aristocratic to me, or like even like posh. Like I feel a disconnect between like almost like humanity and his music, which I know is incredible thing to say.
I was a little minion helper to the music director on the production of Orlando.
It's cool.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful. I'd struggle to say that he's overrated. See, I think Handel is almost as good as Bach.
Whoa.
Like almost, but no one says that he's the greatest composer of all time. So I think he's about right.
I think he's in the same category as Bach. But
he's a hearer, isn't he? He goes here.
More than Bach.
This video is going to be really bloody boring if all that happens is I go, I think this, and you go, I think this, and then we just put all of them in about right. So why don't we just put them both in overrated? And
fine.
We agree to that? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, also from this period, we had one other Baroque composer.
Scarlatti, was it?
That looks like Scarlatti.
I feel like his keyboard works are pretty well respected. Like,
are they?
Yeah, and his body of music outside of keyboard writing, like of stuff that people really, really like, seems to be smaller than it is for Bach, for example.
True. So is he about right?
I think he's about right.
All right, I can live with that. Let's go to some of the biggest names. Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, the first Viennese school. These, another candidate for people that it is almost impossible for them to be rated about right, given how highly they are rated. You know, like Beethoven is played
incessantly
when you consider the number of other composers. I mean, I think Beethoven is brilliant. But, you know, like at the Sydney Con, you walk into the Sydney Con and there is a bust of Beethoven's head as you walk into Sydney Con Library. And that's always annoyed me. No composer needs a bust of their head in a library when they've been dead for hundreds of years.
I think to his late works and how progressive they are, that like, you know, a lot of composers I feel took a step back in terms of being adventurous with harmony, being adventurous with rhythm and form afterwards.
All right, I think you've persuaded me enough to say about right. Talk to me about Mozart.
Look, I actually genuinely do think that Mozart is overrated. I think it's for the same reason I don't necessarily like, I don't warm to Handel. There's this kind of like feeling that it's like slightly how I fear people look at classical music. I feel like Handel and Mozart make me a little uncomfortable.
Okay.
In that way.
I'm happy for you to put Mozart in overrated. And again, I'm not dissing Mozart at all. I'm not dissing Mozart or Bach or Handel. I think they're all excellent. I just think no one is that great.
Yeah.
So for different reasons, I think we can agree to put Mozart in the overrated. Okay, Haydn. Haydn is not quite as well regarded as Mozart and Beethoven. He does get some hate for some of his pieces, but I think Haydn is great. He just wrote so much music. He wrote 104 symphonies and goodness knows how many piano sonatas and string quartets and things. And they're not all going to be good. And he just did it because it was just his job. I think it's about right.
Yeah, I think it's about right too. Like then, you know, if you write 104 symphonies, not all of them are going to be bangers, but like if you can write 104 symphonies to a very high standard, which he did.
Amazing.
That's a huge achievement in itself. Like, I mean, gosh, the kind of workloads I get freaked out by compared to that.
Well, me too. And it's very much the Bach model as well, of just writing masses and masses and masses.
Yeah. Okay. Here's Schubert. He made like a massive contribution to art music that was like unprecedentedly massive. Sorry,
That's
art
true.
song, not art music. Art song was sort of in its infancy, but even so, there's just a massive collections of songs. There's quite a hefty collection of piano sonatas and chamber works, and he died at 31 because of what he left behind. By 31, I'm considering underrated.
I'm struggling to put him in underrated because I think you've outlined all the great contributions that he made, but I think they're all acknowledged. I don't think Schubert's body of art song is unacknowledged. I think Schubert's body of art song is very thoroughly acknowledged.
But I think he made the contribution of someone who died at 50.
All right, let's put him in underrated for now. I'm not 100% convinced.
Okay.
Look,
Chopin. Okay. I think his piano etudes are revolutionary. Like they're amazing. Like they're pieces of music that are so focused in the technical issues they're trying to addressing that they sound nothing like exercises at all. I think there's a lot of beautiful piano music, and I think there is this sort of precursor to, I guess, almost a French sound to a lot of his music. However, there are many composers who I think can write for one instrument as well as Chopin, and then write for the others incredibly successfully as well. I don't feel Chopin can do that. I'm thinking towards the bottom of about right.
See, if anything, I lean a tiny bit underrated because, well, two reasons. One, you know, they are so overplayed, right, to the point of being a cliche. But the nocturnes, imagine if the nocturnes, no one knew about the nocturnes and you just discovered the nocturnes.
Yeah.
It would just be mind-blowing. Second reason, it's the counter to what you're saying. So I think the fact that he has achieved the status that he has achieved by just writing piano music is almost unmatched. You know, there are composers that are like write exclusively for the guitar and they have a very big following in the guitar repertoire, but they're not like everyone knows Chopin. So there's two sides to that.
You know what?
Have I convinced you a little bit?
I find that a pretty convincing argument. So I would be happy to compromise on putting him a bit towards,
Let's bump him up above Haydn.
Yeah.
Liszt. Okay. Liszt does not do it for me. I was talking to my mum about this in the car yesterday, and they were playing some god-awful Liszt Christmas piece on ABC Classic.
A Christmas piece?
Yeah.
Has he done a Christmas album?
I don't know if it was an album. I certainly hope not.
Like Snoop Dogg.
Like Snoop.
Yeah.
Liszt doesn't do it for me.
Okay.
Because, you know, in my liking, small, understated things, Liszt is so overstated. And I think he is overrated.
Okay. Here's my counter argument. I agree with you until the point where he starts sort of phasing out of his rock star lifestyle a bit. He starts becoming more introspective in his work, and he starts making some fairly significant innovations, I think. There was a piece I used to play called Sposalizio, which was extremely spacious. It was quite understated for quite a lot of it. It was about 9 minutes, had a great sense of space and scale. So it was absolutely lovely. So I think that the best of his piano music is the same, maybe better than Chopin's, but it's also more forward thinking. It's a bit more innovative. And there's of course the experiments he did with atonality and, at the end of his life, which were extremely early.
Okay.
You can put him below Scarlatti or even Beethoven if you would.
Can
like,
I?
If
I
you
would,
like.
I would like.
Okay. All right.
Below Beethoven.
Okay. Keep with the romantic period. Wagner. He's a pretty bad dude. What should we go for next? Mahler?
I'm reliably informed that when I was brought home from the hospital as a baby, I was given my first bath to the slow movement of Mahler 5.
Oh, the Adagietto.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the romantic classics CD.
Yeah. My sister got the Lark Ascending for her first bath. Not bad.
Man, I probably got like mental as anything.
We take what we're given. But I have a bit of a soft spot for Mahler. What do you think?
There are odd occasions here and there where I put on Mahler. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's just right.
Yeah, it's so good. It's quite like it's expressive, or to the point of like decadence almost at times, but sometimes you feel like that. Yeah. I'm gonna say he's like a middle of about right. For me is about right.
Tchaikovsky, on the barktrack.com listings of the most played composers every year, he comes out top 5 or something all the time. That feels a little bit much potentially.
There's a lot of moments where I really wish he'd done written his music differently. I think
Piano Concerto?
Oh, among others, yeah.
the great tune at the start that then just never comes back.
Well, this is the problem I've had with a few of the symphonies. It's the problem I've had with the violin concerto. I feel like he's appreciated for lots of moments, but not necessarily lots of pieces. Yeah, and I'm thinking Overrated is.
He's not in bad company. This is not a diss, really.
No.
We haven't dissed anybody yet.
No.
Let's do the Australians. So
let's do it.
We've got good to have some Australian content. We've got Percy Grainger and Margaret Sutherland, two of Australia's important early 20th century composers. I wrote a research paper on Margaret Sutherland and Peggy Glanville Hicks during undergrad. Fascinating stories, and like very much among the first prominent female composers in Australia. And so I think it's impossible to put her anywhere other than underrated, given that her music never gets played as far as I'm aware. String concerto called Haunted House, which like to this day the tune just like I just hum sometimes.
Well, I think you've actually got to put a top of underrated for that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And I feel similarly about Percy Grainger. What do you think about Percy?
Well, his picture, his tier list picture, I mean, that's certainly underrated. There's no way you can overrate that. He's one of those people that's always intrigued me because I've listened to a fair bit of music and my feelings have not solidified.
Okay.
What have you listened to? I think like that phenomena alone makes me feel positively towards him. Like I'm quite curious about him. I've listened to a lot of brass band music, almost an entire concert of it.
Yep. There's some great wind band pieces. Like when you are writing a wind band piece and telling wind band directors that you're writing a wind band piece, they send you Percy Grainger to look at.
I'm actually happy to yield to where you want to put him. If you want to put him underrated,
I want to put him underrated as well. We are probably showing our bias by whipping out two Australian composers and putting them straight into underrated. But someone's got to fight the good fight.
Yeah.
This is Bela Bartok. I think Bartok's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think Bartok could even be a smidgen underrated because he's great. I also think he's a composer's composer.
Yeah, for sure.
Feel that?
Yeah.
Like the music for strings, percussion, and Celeste. I mean, awesome piece, but then, you do an analysis of it. It's all built around like this very common number pattern that composers like to use all the time. You can see all the entries falling on all these mathematical points. And then just the climax of the piece, the arrival, I think they all arrive on a unison E flat. And it's exactly to the millisecond, the ratio point. And it means, you know, who cares if the piece is rubbish? But the piece is brilliant.
Yeah.
And it also does that.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit the same way. Yeah, at least the top of that, right? Because you've got like the construction side of it. You've got the ethnomusicological like side of it. He was he was kind of like, you know, one of the seminal ethnomusicologists.
Maybe we're getting trigger happy just because we've done 2 in a row.
Yeah.
But I want to put him in underrated.
I want to put him
top of that, right?
I want to put him further up than last, but I'm not sure where.
In about right?
No, in underrated.
In underrated. Oh, you want to put him above Percy?
Because what do people know Bartok for? Like, by and large, like, you know, like among musicians, they know him, but do people know him outside of it?
I think people know the string quartets.
Okay.
One of the most important bodies of string quartets.
Yeah.
Early 20th century, I would say. And concerto for orchestra, probably. And music for strings, percussion, celeste.
Right. Well, as long as you guys in underrated, you can pop him where you like. Let's do Holst.
Holst. I haven't heard all of Holst's output, but I have never heard a bad thing that Holst has written. You know, like, he wasn't a proud dude. He just wrote lots of music for kind of not too hard string orchestra and, you know, a lot of wind band pieces and just stuff that loads of people would like to play. And it's all great. And I think that Holst is underrated. I think that Holst is the equal of, you know, those of a similar period, people like, I don't know, Vaughan Williams, that sort of range. Okay. Yeah, I just think, I think he's underrated.
I'm happy to have him underrated.
But you don't actually think he's underrated?
No, I do.
Okay.
Next.
All right. Okay. Now we're into the early 20th century. Let's do the second Viennese school.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Schoenberg, you know, the father of 12-tone technique, and his disciples, Webern and Berg. Second Viennese school, so named after the first Viennese school of Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven. Let's start with Schoenberg. People hate Schoenberg. Just like in general, like no one plays Schoenberg except for Transfigured Night, one of the early pieces, which is like Mahler but worse. I actually think, this is a bit of a hot take, which I'm thinking of on the spot. I wonder if when you consider where we are in classical music today, I wonder if the development of 12-tone technique and serialism more generally was as important a development as everyone thought it was going to be. What I'm saying is, and this, bloody hell, serialism, incredibly important development. But it's still possible to overstate how important it was.
I think there's been a synthesis of accepted approaches, and that they're not mutually exclusive. If you think of like just any creative pursuit as a mixture of intuition and process, I feel like he started off at one of the most thorough investigations of process that ever happened.
You're convincing me a bit. And perhaps because he is barely played, maybe he's underrated.
I think I would put him there.
So let's chat disciples. Berg, Webern.
Yeah.
Now, Webern, pictured here, having a lovely time relaxing on the grass. Schoenberg described his music as a joy in a breath. And it's like that. 6 bagatelles for string quartet sat on my desk for many years. I mean, I still have the score. It's just 6 tiny pieces. Like, we're talking really tiny, 30 seconds, less, some of them. And they're just incredibly austere. It's like the most austere aspects of Schoenberg, and then Berg got all the swoony romantic.
Yes, so complete opposite.
Yeah. It's like Berg and Webern are the two parts.
Yes.
Of Schoenberg separated out to be what they want to be.
Yes.
Where they were in an unhappy sort of union in Schoenberg.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I think Webern is when you get like a small amount of really nice chocolates.
Yeah,
it's sort of like that. It's just like, and they're so neatly presented, and it's just like, or beautifully presented Japanese, because there is something incredibly satisfying about Webern to me. I think he deserves to be an underrated where you've put him.
Yep. Great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put him smidge up.
Ooh.
More. Schoenberg is much more famous than Webern and Berg.
Yes.
People know the name, and that.
Berg's probably nearly as famous as Schoenberg.
Yeah. Let's talk Berg.
It's like a modernist romanticism, I guess.
Yeah. And it's not wrong notey in the way that Schoenberg is wrong notey. Berg sounds right notey. It's just different noties.
Yeah, just different noties.
Okay, but is he about right though? Because I think that the ongoing impact of Schoenberg and Webern on pulling apart pitch and rhythm is more than Berg. I think Berg is fantastic, but I don't think there was ever a school of Berg.
I think he showed the world something really important. The piano sonata is like it's a piece I used to play on the piano, and it's utterly devastating as a piece of music. It's 12 minutes, and it feels like a life lived by the end of it almost. It's just so profound. So I think that he showed the world something very important. So I think in terms of like a diagram of who influenced who and that sort of thing, not so much, but I think so many people look on him fondly as someone who could open people's ears to techniques that they may have been closed for, and for that, I think he's underrated.
I'm convinced. That was very compelling.
I'm a fan.
Lili Boulanger, yes,
underrated. Top. Next,
the sister of Nadia Boulanger,
famous teacher,
the very famous teacher who taught Copeland, Philip Glass, loads of other people, like the go-to pedagogue. And Lily died when 20.
She was about 20. Yeah, she was 24, and she was it's Nadia's younger sister. And Nadia was a composer, but then saw how good Lily was, and Nadia quit composing to teach. She was like, "Won't be that good," and the sacred music, like a lot of vocal music, so beautiful, not very well known, not very much played, and every bit in the ballpark of the big French impressionists that will do Debussy, Ravel. Agreed. Especially because we gave Schubert some cred for dying young. Good on your friends. I think we also need to give Lili Boulanger some credit for dying young as well. Yeah, I mean, if that's how she was writing with 24, I can't. I mean, from age 18, I couldn't have seen how it could have gotten any better, really. So
no,
let alone if she'd been into her 50s or 60s. So
I'm going to put her top.
I'm going to put it. I'd put her top.
Yeah, we both feel strongly about Lili Boulanger. Okay, so let's do Debussy.
I mean, probably To the Afternoon of a Faun.
Oh,
Boulez described as the start of modern music. Is he next to Mahler? There.
Yeah, somewhere.
I think just there.
Ravel? Let's do Ravel. The one thing that I wish people would rabbit on about slightly less, though, because I think, it's right, the Schumann's orchestration is bad thing, or the Mozart's early works were pale imitations of his later deeper works. It's just stuff that someone says, and then people that actually don't have an opinion on it parrot it for 150 years and just becomes a thing.
Oh, yeah.
The Ravel orchestration thing. Good orchestrator, right? But if you play, because he wrote a lot of his orchestral pieces as piano pieces first, they started there, then he orchestrated them out. He's sort of as the greatest orchestrator ever, pretty much. You play the piano pieces, they're great already. I actually think the amount of how good he is that is about the orchestration is overstated a bit.
Yeah. See, I think Debussy's orchestration is actually just as good.
Yeah, it's just different.
It's just different. Yeah.
Right, let's pop Ravel there. Stravinsky. I'm gonna put him up here.
Wow.
He is my boy.
Yeah.
I love Stravinsky. We can beat that. We can decide what sort of channel this is.
Hey, as long as we're more than 5 minutes in.
All the famous ones.
Yep.
Rite of Spring.
Yep.
Firebirds. Yep. Petrushka, I'm a little bit less keen on than the other two.
Oh,
but like it's still
my favorite.
Really?
Of the three, yeah.
Oh, Firebird might be my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. The other ballets like Argonne that you mentioned before, wonderful, like 3 pieces for string quartet, even just like solo stuff like the 3 pieces for clarinet, then the neoclassical stuff, Symphony of Psalms that opens with that big E minor chord. And then, like later on, he goes serial after Schoenberg dies.
Yeah, his life is divided into three periods, like the Russian period, the neoclassical period, and the serial period. But even within those periods, his work's quite eclectic to me. It's quite eclectic. It's quite varied. It's one of those things you could spend a long time exploring Stravinsky and discovering things. I think. I think he's a composer for life.
To me, he's every bit the equal of Beethoven and Bach.
Yeah. Agreed.
Are we putting him in underrated? Bottom of underrated. Charles Ives.
I think he did a lot of unique things as that sort of marrying together like classical with things from everyday life, church hymns, marching bands, like tunes people knew at the time, like American folk song.
His thing that he close to pioneered, at least, was having multiple different sort of quite independent layers in the music, which predated a lot of other composers like Elliott Carter and so on. And the unanswered question has this cycling pattern of really sort of pure, beautiful, simple string chords. And then over that, a solo trumpet presents this melody, which is like the question. And then I think it's a group of 4 flutes, or it's a few wind instruments anyway. They sort of come in and they answer. But each thing is just totally different. Satie, okay, everyone knows
Gymnopedy.
Everyone knows the Gymnopedy. But most people don't probably know.
Maybe Nauseans as well.
Yeah, but what people probably don't know about the famous Gymnopedy is it's part of a set of, I think it's 5 Gymnopedies, and they're all exactly the same piece, but he's just like changed the notes.
What? I didn't know that.
There's 5 Gymnopedies, and they're all the same, but instead of da dee da dee da 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 dee da, it might be da dee 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 boo dee or something. Then he wrote a lot of joke pieces. Was it Desiccated Embryos?
Oh, I love that one. The one that it like ends like 30 times because it's making fun of Beethoven.
It's making fun of Beethoven. It's like bom bom bom. Look at it on. Bom 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 bom. Bom 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 bom. Dum bom. Da da dum. Bom bom.
Da 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 da.
Boom, etc., etc. I'm a big enthusiast for taking humor seriously.
Yep.
It's like humor is a serious, important thing.
I'm struggling to put him any higher than about right, but probably the top end, because I think there are probably people on here who have 2 or 3 pieces they're known for, and he wrote mainly for piano. Yep. Pretty much. Like, he didn't write much for like orchestra or chamber music.
Couple of orchestra pieces.
Yeah, he's got a couple. Yeah. I think he's brilliant and fascinating. But I think he's top end of about right for me.
He's more underrated than Schubert, because Schubert is much more highly rated.
Actually, you're right. He is. He is. Oh wow! There you go.
That's all I need. Ruth Crawford Seeger.
I'm only really familiar with her string quartet. It's a treasure trove of stuff for people like us to investigate, like like Schoenberg is. It's like, I could do this, I could do this. It's quite inspiring to look at. And I think it's a great piece of music.
So it starts with like one of the violin, I think it starts this way, like the violin plays 1 note and the rest of the quartet plays, I don't know, like 20 notes or something. And then the first violin plays 2 notes and the rest of the quartet then play 19. And the violin plays 3 and the rest of the ensemble play 18, and so on and so on and so on until they've completely swapped over, and then they work backwards. That sort of process-driven writing, really ahead of its time,
and pulled off in a really satisfying way. Like gives me very similar feelings to Bartok. Like, yes, that's like really satisfying. Yeah. I think she is bottom of underrated.
So she's there.
Let's do half of Gershwin. I love Gershwin. I love his songs. I love like Concerto in F. I think as a piece, massively underrated and overshadowed by Rhapsody in Blue. I think it's everything I get from Rhapsody in Blue, with like just so much more like structural prowess and satisfaction to me. I think it's about right. Well, you probably know more about Poulenc, who's the last one.
I love Poulenc. He's another one like Holst. Never heard a bad piece. Haven't heard all the pieces, but like Organ Concerto.
I haven't heard that.
Awesome. There's piano concertos, double piano concerto. You know, I don't think that he is Beethoven. You know, it hasn't got the depth of Lili Boulanger, but he's trying to do a different thing. It's got a playfulness to it, but I rate that as well in its own way.
Yeah, I think that also that lightheartedness and playfulness, you know, in a way it was the exact right time for that. It was the rise of the Darmstadt school and that sort of thing. I think that culturally at the time he had like quite a valuable place, considering other sort of musical developments that were going on.
I mean, how do you feel about? I put him somewhere low. I think he's probably more underrated than Satie.
I'm content to put him there.
So at the end of this, we've decided that Mozart, Handel, Tchaikovsky, and Bach are overrated composers. I'm finding it really hard to sign off the video with Bach there.
Good.
But this is just because we've been indoctrinated.
What?
It's because he's good as well, isn't it?
It's because he's good as well.
Okay. Can we put him in?
Put him in bottom of about right.
Okay. I'm going to do that. And I want to restate that Bach is brilliant, right? But if you say that someone is the greatest composer of all time, you are overrating them. If you say that as your personal opinion, it's your favorite.
Yes, that's my favorite. Yeah.
If you put it in a history textbook and teach it to students, you're overrating it.
I don't think you should teach anyone that anyone's the greatest composer of all time.
You absolutely should not. This is why the people in our underrated column are underrated, because the people in the overrated column and towards the back end of the about right column are hogging the performance slots. Yeah, okay. I'm content to put them above Saint-Saëns. I think our hottest take is Bartok being the fourth most underrated composer out of our list.
Yeah, I think that's...
But I'm good with that.
But it's not a list of every composer ever.
And Lili Boulanger, I feel good about that as well. Just top of the list.
Yeah.
Just freaking beautiful.
I mean, if
no one knows about.
Yeah, and if that trajectory continued, she would be the greatest composer of all time.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us for our tier list. Hope you guys had fun. Give us a subscribe, like us on all the platforms.
Ask Jeeves.
We're everywhere.
Yeah.
And look forward to seeing you in the next video. See ya. Angus.